Hey guys, I've just finished interviewing Ewan Morton from Morton Real Estate in Sydney. It's an 8-office network and a strong brand. Everyone knows who Ewan Morton is. But he's got some great tips around maintaining and building culture through this time, using a survey as a bit of a barometer for how your staff are seeing the business, and you get some great input from there. And what he sees is the silver lining around all of this that we're going through. So check it out on the vlog and also on the podcast. Well, guys, welcome again to our Surviving COVID-19 series. Today's guest is going to be fascinating. He's got a lot of intel. It comes from a small family agency that he's built up into now a very, very strong 8-office network in Sydney. It's Ewan Morton from Morton Real Estate. Now, before we get to Ewan, again, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below for YouTube to get these interviews straight to you, and also jump on Spotify and follow homely.com.au to make sure you're getting the podcasts as they come to hand. Ewan, thank you so much for investing some time with us today.
Pleasure.
Mate, you give us a little bit of your background. You started off as a small agency. You're now an 8-office agency. We're not talking too much about COVID-19, but I suppose initially, but you've seen some amazing things in that time where you took over that business over the last 20 years, roughly.
Yeah.
This has sort of taken us into a different time, but love to understand your thoughts around the brand direction, where you've come and where it's going to go to in these coming months.
Well, I mean, we started in 1996, so that makes me feel very old. And we've been going for well over 20 years. So my father and I started the business back then. Sometimes I say we started in 1996. Sometimes I say we started in 1998, just because the 2 years were a disaster. The first 2 years were a disaster, and I wrote them off. And we got going again in 1998. Since then, it's just me and Dad. We started with no clients, nothing, and have sort of chipped away at it, I suppose, over that time. And now we have.
What was that first office?
It was in the first one was in Crow's Nest.
Okay.
And there was no real reason to that either. In fact, we actually started in a suburb called Waverton in Sydney, and that was part of the first 2 years, which didn't go so well. Okay. And then we actually ended up in Crow's Nest because we wanted to be next to the bank, but there was no sort of theory behind it all, except that we thought that why not? So we ended up there, and literally we had, at that particular point, we had 40 property management clients. So in 2 years, we've managed to be super successful and get 40 clients. So it was all looking a bit dire. But we've just chipped away at it. So we now have 3,600 managements, and we're probably one of the largest management rent rolls in Sydney.
Sure.
We've built up, the property management has been the basis of our business. And then, so we're about 50% PM and 50% selling. And we work to keep that proportion. And part of that is so that when we face issues like COVID, which we'll get onto, as a business, we've got more stability. And every day we get up, particularly in the last 2 years, really, where the real estate market hasn't been so crash hot. We've been very grateful for the fact that we have such a large rent roll. It manages to pay the bills and also allows and sustains us through downtimes, which means that we can actually expand. So it's been a good thing. So we just chip away. So those 8 offices, our main marketplace is Woolloomooloo through to Pyrmont through the CBD.
Okay.
And as a combination, we'd probably be the number 1 agent across that area. A lot of those areas we sort of grew in those areas as those suburbs grew. They weren't traditional suburbs that people lived in. And then we've just grown out from there. So Green Square, we have obviously Crow's Nest, originally where we were. We also have an office at Wentworth Point, one at Riverwood and one at Penrith. And all those areas are growth suburbs where there's a lot of building going on. And again, that's why we're there, is to capitalise on that growth.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So when did you sort of take over officially by yourself? When did Dad leave the business?
Well, actually, my dad's actually only just retired.
Oh, okay.
So he retired at the age of 79 last year.
Wow. Okay.
So, but he in terms of, like, I've sort of driven it and run it, I suppose, supported by him. And during the course, like he's done, we've like both of us have done all roles in the business. But as he sort of got older, he sort of settled into more of the trust account administration side. And I'd say for the the last 10 years or so, he's really been driving that. And we actually gradually phased him out. So he sort of went down to 3 days a week, and then he reached a point where he thought it was time for him to stop work, and he did. Yeah. So I suppose I've been driving it from the beginning in terms of our growth and where we've wanted to go. But he's been an active member of. At one stage, he was the sales team. So he's definitely been across the whole show.
Yeah, sure. So thinking about that, just sort of unpacking a few things you've said there. When you decide to grow, or when you decide to look for new markets to tap into, now you're across 8 offices. What do some of those things look like? What do Morton look like, or what do Morton look for? What's part of your due diligence when you're looking for new markets to tap into?
Well, we do a lot of work with developers, so we've got strong relationships with developers, and we've been able to go into certain areas and build a property management base. So a lot of it's to do with building the property management base first, and getting established that way, and that gives you a solid basis, and then building the sales out from that, as opposed to the other way around, where a lot of people would look at
Start a sales business.
Yeah, so whereas we've sort of gone the other way, and of course the property management creates a foundation for salespeople to get established. So, we've always found it challenging to get salespeople going. It's a 3-year journey to get started, and it's a pretty hard one in my experience.
Yes.
And really, it takes 5 years for somebody to really get to a good, solid position. So as a business, by providing them with some property management leads to get started, it gives them the impetus to build something from it. So that's generally the way that we've gone.
Okay. And so inside this time, sort of bringing it to now through this pandemic, everyone's talking about, what is the opportunity inside of this adversity at the moment? So is there a chance to grow the Morton brand in this time? Is there opportunities there that you're looking at now, or you will be looking at in the coming months?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I would say the last month's all been about, survival plan, will we make it through COVID alive? I think that's very much been it. But I feel like even this week I've called this, business as usual week, where now that everybody's adjusted to inspections, even the market's adjusting. So we found on the leasing side of things, a very big challenge to, the leasing inquiry fell off a cliff basically. Sure. And certainly in our markets, there's been a lot of trauma on rental value. So working how to navigate that. But we're all used to that now. Like on the selling side, we've got used to the private inspections, and we've started doing online auctions. So we're moving down doing that path, and things are transacting and selling. So we seem to have made that adjustment, and I wouldn't say we're back to business as usual from the point of view. There's still some uncertainty around rent reductions and what's going to happen to management fees, but we seem to be traveling a lot better. So yeah, so trying to get back into it, and also looking at what's the opportunity coming out of this. Because I think a lot of real estate businesses will be cleared out by this crisis.
Yeah, sure.
Particularly ones that are sales focused. I think we know that they'll be closing their doors. Yeah. So there'd been a talk even before COVID that real estate businesses are going to get bigger, and the smaller ones are going to make it it's going to be harder to be able to make a profit margin. And I think COVID's just accelerated that process basically. So I definitely see there's opportunity there. And one of the things I'm thinking about right now, because we stood people down and we basically stopped our growth function. We thought, okay, stop that. And let's just do the business. Like, let's just service the clients that we've got. Whereas I'm starting to think, okay, right, when can we start getting back to that growth function and making sure that investment comes back?
Where do you see that happening? I mean, it's interesting that you say that this week you feel as though it's business back to usual. And every year we sort of look at this as agents and real estate businesses. It's, Easter comes, Anzac, all those sort of things happen. And there is a natural slowing and then moving into the winter. But for whatever reason, it does feel as though there is, more tangible energy and better things happening this week. What do you put that down to exactly? Just an appetite for it because of what we've been going through, working from home and all those sort of parameters?
Yeah, I think it also relates to human nature. We all, and also the infection rate is dropping. So the stats that are coming out are really, really good. And so I think people are relaxing a little bit. They think they're not going to get corona and die. So, they're breathing a bit. And also being real estate agents, we're not very good at operating in isolation.
So true.
So we've actually found a sort of natural gravitation of people coming back to the office. Like I'm actually down in our Green Square office today, and this team's basically coming into work. They're all, 1.5 meters away from each other and all that stuff, but they're all coming back because they like each other and they work well as a team. So, we're seeing sort of a bit of a gravitational pull as people are a bit like, you know what, I'd like to get out of my home office and see what everybody's doing. So I think that in itself is making people feel better. And also the great pandemic, the plague that was going to take everyone out, would appear to be under control today. Who's to say what's going to happen in the future? And it seems the government's doing a good job of managing this, I think. So that's making us all feel a little bit more calm. Also, we're like everyone did the Corona plan. So into the huddle, what's the worst case scenario? So we were like, right, our sales are going to drop by 50%. Our leasing will drop by 60%. Our property management fees, the golden goose, will drop by 20%. And we said, and it's going to happen now, right? So what actually is translated is it didn't happen now. It's for real estate. It's like seeing the iceberg. We can see the iceberg in the distance,
it's coming,
and we are inevitably rowing towards it, but we're not zooming there. We've got time to, change the rudder or row a bit harder and avoid it. And I think that's what's happening is we're sort of settling into it. So our business, we're on week by week. So this week, the sales team sold stuff. We worked out what we needed to sell in order to make sure that the sales team paid for itself.
Yes.
And in April, we're going to make that number. And it looks like in May, we're going to make that number. Now, June, we're not sure yet. So I'm like, okay, sales team, okay, April, sales team, okay, May. Our leasing halved. So our sort of goal was we generally do 30 plus leases a week, and that dropped down to 13. And so we had 3 weeks of 13, 15, 17. And that's where it's like, oh my God, here we go. And not only that, in our more expensive areas, so like Piedmont and say Macquarie Street in the CBD, which has got an average rent of $1,000 a week.
Yes.
Everybody's bailing. So expensive, get out of expensive and go cheaper. So, but in the average areas, which is more normal, like Wentworth Point and Penrith, they've actually been navigating fine. Like once everybody adjusted to the way to do business, the results are actually what we would expect, no COVID. So getting used to that. So with the lease, and then last week we saw our leases, they went to 24, then they're back to 33. So it would look like we're settling back into normal. Now, if we go the next couple of weeks at 30 plus, then that's fine. We'll be fine. Then with the with the management fees, obviously rent reduction city, but it's like one of those things where there's an enormous amount of noise around it. So tenants yelling, tenants crying, landlords yelling, but the actual number of rent reductions we've actually done as a proportion of our total portfolio is actually relatively small. So, the people having to prove hardship in order to get a rent reduction is clearing out a lot of people and getting rid of that. So now that we're navigating through that, it's like, okay, well, maybe the rent reduction aren't going to be as bad as we thought. So on Friday, I've got my business partner and joint managing director. We're going into a huddle to look at what were the results in April. Can we navigate through this? Can we navigate through this without cutting people's pay, right?
Yes.
So, that's a very big thing that we're thinking about, because obviously everyone's, you've got to take a 20% pay cut, all of that sort of noise. But we've managed to get so far without actually having to do that. So we think that will have a big impact upon our team if we start cutting people's pay. So our whole thing was we're calling it Operation Abyss, where we've just got to get everybody across to the other side. And I'm thinking, if I can get everybody across to the other side where we don't have to cut pays and we don't qualify for JobKeeper, I'm giving myself a gold star for that. But at this stage, so this stage is so far so good, but it literally is a week by week process.
Oh, that's massive. Operation Abyss. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, if you can not have the JobKeeper as part of your structure, that'd be huge. Incredible.
Well, I mean, I think on the JobKeeper, what's interesting is, in a way, the like 2018 and 2019 for real estate was bad.
Yeah.
Volumes dropped. So we had 2017, great year. 2018, bad year. We all went, thank God that's over. Then 2019 was actually worse than that. So the situation we faced is our first quarter of 2020 is better than our first quarter of 2019. And in fact, our April in 2020 looks like it's going to blitz our April of 2019.
Wow.
So, yeah. So then when you're going like, oh no, or is that oh no, or is that good?
So is the iceberg still coming? If you're going to have a better April 2020 than April 2019, do you think that August, September is not going to be as good, or how does that look? Not trying to be doomsday, but
yeah. No. The iceberg's still definitely there.
Yeah.
And we're taking it very seriously. Like we've told our team pay cuts could still be on the table.
Yeah.
We just got to wait and see how this lands. And I think the big issue is actually going to be September, when all the support stops. So obviously everyone's putting their mortgages on hold. Any support, like we took a view of any support that we could get, we would take. So our loans that we have in our business, loans that shareholders have personally, everybody just went hard and had all that put on hold. So to take the pressure off, and everybody's done that.
Yeah.
The government is supporting, with the payroll tax and giving us money back on our PAYG, stuff like that is all good, but that finishes all in September. So if we're not pulling out of this as a country economically by then the real trouble might actually hit at that point, where people actually have to go back to paying their mortgages and they can't. So we're very much taking the iceberg seriously, and we're seeing this as a 2020 project. We've got to get through 2020 to 2021. So that's how we're sort of viewing it.
In the scheme of things, a 20% drop. I mean, there's, many corporates have, laid off entire sales teams or entire arms of their companies, and people have gone down to 40 and 50% wages. So 20%, gosh, I mean, if you can get away with that, is still an extraordinary effort through this time, surely.
Yeah. So our whole goal is to break even, really.
Yeah.
So if we can do that and keep our team intact and culturally, and that's where I think the big opportunity is how you can actually build your culture during this time.
Yeah.
And that's
can we talk about the culture a bit?
Yeah, for sure.
So, oh no, sorry, you go. I think I've interrupted you there.
No, that's all right. I mean, one of the things I've learned through this, we ever had to do a pandemic before? Nah, right? So it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, as the whole world doesn't know what they're doing. So
no mud map for this, yeah.
Nah. And I've been very upfront with our team to sort of say, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I might make some missteps along the way.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is going step by step, so that if we've got to change something, we will. We took a view that we'd be as transparent as we possibly could. So I've been, in the beginning, I was like doing, we have an internal Facebook page. I would have been doing 2 to 3 videos a week on telling everybody what was happening. And I probably settled back to a video a week. Last week, we had a quarterly update, which we normally do, but we did it by Zoom. And what we did is we went to the team with a survey monkey and said to them, what questions have you got? So, and we made it anonymous, so everyone felt that they could ask whatever they wanted. And so we asked that, and we also asked them for their opinion on how they felt that we should manage the finances, like manage it financially.
Wow. Okay.
Down to, were they into everybody taking a hit together, or would they prefer us to stand people down, or did they have any other suggestion? And we, of any survey that I've ever done to the team, we actually got the most overwhelming response to that.
So can you share some of those results? Not specifics, but just sort of in general.
Yeah, no, it was fascinating actually. Okay. A lot of the questions were around, what are you going to do if we all get sick? Are we eligible for JobKeeper? When you stand people down, what's your criteria? If we are going to take pay cuts, is it going to be done across the board, or will you be, give it to those who can cop it, basically?
Yes.
So a lot of equity questions about, what's fair. a lot of suggestions, like in terms of the suggestions they had financially, a lot of the things they suggested we were already on top of. But what I was impressed with was the depth of thought that they'd all had about things. Like they'd thought about expenses that we had and can we turn that off? Should we have this? Is this necessary? Not necessary?
So this wasn't a multiple choice thing. This is they're actually able to proffer their own.
Yeah.
Ideas around
Yeah. And it was the commentary was, I would have said was spot on, mature, well thought out, and excellent questions. So, sometimes you assume
incredible barometer to use for the culture of your business, isn't it? I mean, a completely independent and anonymous survey to find out where people's heads are at pre, post, and during this. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And the fascinating say, would you like, do we all take pay cuts or do people get sacrificed? And there was a percentage that were pay cuts for everybody, but there was a percentage of look after me first, get rid of everyone else.
Take it off the fat cats, look after me.
And human nature being as it was. And also it was interesting because, people are like, as a team, we should all take the pain. And I was like, well, you think about everybody's personal situations. Like even in my personal situation, my wife's actually a doctor and she does elective surgeries and all her work was turned off.
Gone. Yeah.
So, a substantial part of our family income disappeared. So, I've got 3 kids at private school, like whatever, I've got to pay the school fees, all that type of stuff and mortgages and the whole bit. And I had my own moment where you're like, okay, I don't really need a pay cut right now because I'm not sure if I'm going to be paying the bills either. So I actually had an empathy with the people where, and I was like, well, I sort of understand where they're coming from, particularly some of the people were like, well, my partner's been stood down, so we're actually back to one income. So any change to my income is actually going to it's going to be difficult, very difficult. So, I sort of took that on board to say, well, okay. And the other irony of this whole thing is a lot of people, like if you're a restaurant, yeah, sure, you stand people down because there's no one in your restaurant, there's no work. We actually have got busier. And in fact, the property management team have taken it completely in the head because they have had to deal with a client base that has been yelling and crying at the same time. And that emotion that they've had to deal with. The sales guys, the same thing, where very, very stressed and anxious clients they've got to deal with. So the amount of emotion that we've had to do. And of course, the inspection routine, that's more work. Everyone's really understanding what the efficiency of an open for inspection is. Whereas having to go one-on-one on everything is creating more work for people. So here we are saying, well, what we actually want you to do, you got to work harder, right? And then we're going to actually pay you less. Now, I think in the beginning, everybody was like, yeah, we're all in this together. But as the thing panned out and everyone started to sort of see the consequence of this, particularly on the property management people, they're like, I'm giving to the company now by working 14-hour days and I'm doing my bit to keep our world together and you're going to cut my pay? So we really thought hard about that and felt that because we spent a lot of time working on culture and trying to make sure that we have a good culture. And one of the things I learned is that I bang on all the time about culture and this and leadership and like a ranting sort of lunatic. And what I realized is that people actually have been listening to it. They actually saw value in the culture, right? So as leaders, sometimes we feel like we're talking to a void. You're saying all these things, but you don't know if anyone's hearing you or whether they actually care. Well, it turns out they were listening and they do care. So I was like, oh my God, if we take a misstep here, we could take 23 years worth of culture and destroy it. So we sort of thought about this, and this is where I think one of the opportunities is for businesses is they really can come out of this with an even stronger culture if you do it right. So our view is, right, we've got to navigate across the abyss. And in fact, this week I've been calling it a series of abysses. So, we've got over the abyss in April. Now we've got to look to see, will we get over the abyss in May and keep those decisions? And if we can do that in such a way that people can keep their pays intact, then I think we'll be able to come out to say, well, you work for Morton. We didn't have a pay cut in COVID. did the people you work for do that? And they'll go, yeah, a lot of agencies have cut all those salaries. So that's not to say that we're going to achieve that, right? I don't know whether we're going to get that far. We might have to do it depending on what happens, but we're definitely trying to do that so that we can say to our team, we looked after you. And one of the big things is, like, I've always, we come from a family business, right?
Yes.
It's me and Dad, and that ethos that sits around that, people really saw value in that, more value in that than I appreciated. A family looks after each other. So I thought what we have to do here is we have to look after everybody and do our best to do it. We said that people may have to be flexible in their roles. So you might be doing this, but you end up having doing that because somebody's got to do it, right? And so we've definitely had people moving around and being more flexible as a result of all of this. But it's all very much about navigating the team, the whole team through.
It's funny, isn't it? We've gone on weeks and weekends for the ultimate team building exercises, and it's like, as soon as you split the team up, make them work from home, we've actually created the greatest team building exercise.
Yeah.
People are actually wanting, and I think that but you're actually, you're not just playing volleyball on the beach together. You're actually building something together and creating a journey through, a way through for your business. That's extraordinary.
Well, it's everyone's can have their own Braveheart moment, where everyone's charging down the hill. We're all like, there's definitely a mood. I'm sitting out here looking at my team in Green Square, right? There's definitely a mood that we're going to make it, like we're going to get through this, and everybody is giving their all. So I don't think there's anybody who's been slack. And it's funny, I don't know, whatever, like, I don't know, everyone's at home, not at home, who knows? But I can see results and things coming in, and people are working hard, so their attitude's right. And you don't have to have everybody in an office to create that. So, I also think the opportunities are going to be a lot of big changes that we're making big change that actually is not going to go away.
Yeah.
So, I think that, the fact that this flexibility of work, people being able to, like, we've been talking about that for a long time, the managing of personal and business and kids and all that sort of stuff. You've got people, I've got, guys that 2 working parents, small children, they're trying to look after them and work at the same time and homeschool. Like, one of my guys told me that he was doing his work between 8 o'clock at night and 1 o'clock in the morning. Wow. Because that's the only time he could fit it in based on his other sort of responsibilities, and he's doing his job. So I think these sort of arrangements are going to stay with us. And I think that's a good thing.
And I think people are very focused now on outcomes focused. It's not just, the hours during the day or, when you're being monitored between 9 and 5. The outcomes are ever important. Changes in the portal space, do you think will happen through this time and coming out the other side?
Yeah, potentially. I think there's an opportunity for Homely in all of this. Because one of the things that we've definitely been seeing is it's like everything's come under pressure. So we've been back to all our landlords, back to our suppliers, everybody's renegotiating their agreements. And I think the portal pricing is encouraging people to look for alternatives. And that's something that everybody's been saying for years. And we're starting to see stuff like, in some of our marketplaces, it's 50 domain, 50realestate.com, definitely there. And we are starting to see, just because people don't want to spend the money on the marketing, it's like, we'll just go to domain and Homely, like, split it, as opposed to fighting to get the budget.
Yes.
With the pressure that's out there on price and volume, it's like, we know if we get it onto one portal, we'll be able to sell it. So just do that and get on with it. We're definitely starting to see that that sort of trend. So I don't know, it'd be interesting. I mean, I suppose the portals are being supportive. They are trying to help us all through this, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And I suppose whether something like Homely can come through, and they are, again, if people are making choices to be on one portal or the other, that's a real opportunity for Homely to be the whole market. That's where I see the difference coming.
One thing you talked about earlier was the growth function. You've sort of turned the growth function off, and it's almost like a switch that you can switch back on. I just sort of want to finish off with, how do you switch that back on? How do you then sort of go, right, now's the time to grow again? And what will be the indicator for you to sort of hit that switch?
Yeah. So Morton, we've always been a growth business, right? That's it. And the problem with growth is it's expensive because you've got to invest in the resources to get the growth. And sometimes those resources don't deliver the growth. But the reason we're a growth business actually relates to culture, because, you know, when you have people and they get better at their jobs, you've got to have more challenges for them to do. And if you don't have more challenges for them to do, then they have to look elsewhere for those challenges and they leave your business. And that can be and that's actually part of what can keep you small. So, you know, getting back to growth will be important for that reason. Basically what we did is we have a very large new business team. And what we did was, okay, let's in that leasing a new business, we stood those people down. We also stood down, we had inspection officers. So we stopped all our periodics and stood those people down.
Okay.
So that sort of is holding the line. But now what we're doing is looking, okay, if we're traveling okay. So for example, our Penrith office is going absolutely gangbusters. And we actually stood an inspection officer down there, but actually they haven't seen a dip in business. In fact, they're getting busier than ever. So it's like, okay, well, we need to potentially bring that guy back to allow them to keep moving on their growth path that we actually had them on from the beginning of the year. So that's what we're going to do. So just assessing each section of the business, selling, property management, leasing, each office, how those things are going in that office. And from that, we'll make decisions about when's the appropriate place to bring it back and ramp it up again, so that as we sort of come out of this, our guys have, we've got a group of people who are focused on looking for new business.
Yeah. Cool. Matt, I'll wrap up, but a couple of weeks ago, you were asked in an interview, what is the silver lining in all of this? Has that changed in the last 14 days? Or is that... I'm not giving you the answer.
No, no,
I just want to see if you're...
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I don't know. How am I going to say? I can't even remember. I think there's definitely a silver lining in this, because firstly, we're going to come out a lot more efficient. Like, I reckon the last 2 years being difficult in real estate has been a training. It's fantastic that we had that, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to cope with what we've got now. Whereas everyone's been in training for a bad time. And in fact, I would have said that before COVID, like as the year started to pan out, January, February, I was like, I don't know, our sales market's not looking as buoyant as we were hoping after. And some of those prices, I was like, there's definitely signs in the marketplace that it was going to, you know, come off, and then COVID's just accelerated it. So I think the silver lining is, one, we're going to become more efficient. I think our business models are going to change, like this whole offices. Are we going to have as much office space as we have now? I don't think so. I think some of the things that we're doing with technology will remain. I think the flexible workplace, and I think we'll be able to build better culture as a result. And I think it's the stronger businesses that are going to come out and be able to capitalize on this. So that's why I'm thinking, okay, when can I get that growth function back into my business? Yeah. Because I don't want to miss out on the opportunity that could be in front of us. So yeah, I definitely think, but you've got to have that mindset to be thinking that COVID's a great thing, as opposed to the worst pandemic that ever hit us. I think if you have that different mindset, then I think you can come out well.
So true. Mate, a lot of gold there today. I really love that employee survey. I think that's a great way to measure some of the health in your business. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for giving us a bit of time today, Ewan. Really appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.